Cleveland, this is for you.
I sure hope people were able to hear that, because if that flopped, this might as well just stop making YouTube videos. All right, let's jump into it here. Cleveland, this is for you. This is my season preview for the Cleveland Cavaliers going into the 2021-22 NBA season. We're going to talk about these things right here: off-season moves, salary cap sheet, rotations, and their win total according to Vegas, and just kind of talk a little bit about that and what that means for, and kind of what to expect for the Cavaliers this season, because I don't know if there's a whole lot to be excited for. Before we get into it, though, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, tell me where you think Cleveland's going to end up this year, who you're excited about. Is Darius Garland going to win most improved player of the year? I think there's a strong possibility he could, but maybe they don't get enough wins for him to be able to kind of get recognition. So again, subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that fun stuff. Let's go. Let's start with Cleveland with the off season here. Kind of a little bit of weird trades that happened. We'll get into those in a minute. I do want to touch really quickly on Evan Mobley, who they drafted 3rd overall in the draft, and he's a really solid pick. I think, I will even admit that, like, I have Cade Cunningham as like my number 1 dude in the draft, and then Jalen Green, even though I feel like it's a 1A, 1B kind of a thing. The one thing that makes me hesitate on Green is just kind of off the court stuff, as far as like his issues with like not being the number 1 overall pick, but we'll talk about that later in a future stream, most likely. Evan Mobley is the 7-foot center who can also probably play the 4, plays defense, and I think he reminds me a lot of Jaren Jackson, and there's such a high ceiling for guys like that. Could maybe stretch the floor a little bit and shoot the basketball a little bit. I like him. I like him, and I think he's pretty good. And so I think that's the right selection for Cleveland. Here's the interesting thing. So let's really quickly talk about, because I'm going to talk a lot about what they traded for. Lost Damian Dotson, they waived him. Isaiah Hartenstein signs with the Clippers, which is actually a low-key, like, really good move. Larry Nance was traded in that marketing deal to Portland. And then Taurean Prince was traded in the Ricky Rubio trade, and he's going to Minnesota. And then Trayvon Scott was waived as well. Let's talk about the offseason here and why I'm going to give it like a C+ for the Cavaliers. So they had a couple things that they needed to do. Draft whoever kind of best player available, in my opinion. Re-sign Jared Allen. Because honestly, there's people who really push back on like, oh, Jared Allen, they shouldn't have re-signed Jared Allen for that much, blah, blah, blah. Look, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, like, what else are they supposed to? Are they just supposed to let him walk and maybe try to get a sign-in trade figured out? I don't think that's the best thing for the team to do. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong there. And I will come back and hate on myself if I am wrong. Evan Mobley. So obviously Evan Mobley was drafted, but I want to talk about Lauri Markkanen and the Ricky Rubio trade. I don't understand the Rubio trade. He's making $17.8 million this year in an expiring contract. Okay, cool. And maybe you can move off of him again. Is he really going to be a part of the rotation? Like, that's my question. Like, you have Darius Garland, who everyone's expecting to kind of take another jump this upcoming season. You have Colin Sexton, who was a really solid player last year. Maybe didn't contribute to winning, but still a solid scorer in his role. And now you're bringing in Rubio to kind of maybe take minutes and take the ball away from them a little bit. I don't understand that a whole lot. So we'll see. Maybe he's a buyout candidate. Maybe they buy him out and the Lakers are like, hey, we need a point guard. Ricky Rubio, why don't you come and be our point guard off the buyout market? Maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. But I do think it's an interesting trade nonetheless. Let's talk about probably the most controversial move of the offseason here. And that is, get the mic adjusted here. That is the Cleveland Cavaliers trading for Lauri Markkanen in a sign and trade with Chicago Bulls. I actually am okay with Markkanen. I think he's okay to have on a team. I'm even semi-okay with him starting. And I know I'm going to sound crazy by saying that, because he doesn't play a whole lot of defense. He can at times be a little shy from the rim. He kind of reminds me of, like, his issues that he has and why a lot of people are down on him are very similar kind of trend of negatives that people like to emphasize. Very similar to Kristaps Porzingis, a guy who's like the side, who is very tall, very, I think, really athletic, and just doesn't really show it on the defensive end. Doesn't really show it. Like, there might be a mental thing there. Like, is he getting in his own head? Is he really like basketball a whole lot? I think there's a little bit of that in Lauri Markkanen, so people are down on him. I personally think he's been through a lot of crappy situations in Chicago with multiple head coaches, and he gets traded. They've traded away some of the young players that they've drafted and kind of given up in a way. So does Markkanen find a good place to move on from Chicago? Not really, in my opinion. And it's not so Markkanen as much as it is Cleveland. Their front court is a really, really weird situation. You have Jared Allen that you re-signed. You just drafted Evan Mobley. And you just also brought in Markkanen in this trade. So a trade, a guy you kept, a draft pick, and then guess who else is on their roster? We forget Kevin Love, who didn't even play last year. So you have those 4 guys who can play the 4 and the 5. And, well, maybe not Allen so much the 4, I should say. But you have these front court players. And it is amazing to me that they were so open to just go in on Markkanen. Now, maybe they love Markkanen, and that's their guy, and they go and get him. And maybe there is something with Love that they can get figured out, but I don't think there is. Not right now. Is there a trade where Cleveland gives up a future first rounder and gets rid of Love's contract and sends him to Oklahoma City? Maybe. But is it worth giving up a first round pick, just to bring in Markkanen? Like, they're really high on the guy. So it's really interesting to me what Cleveland's doing there. In fact, let's go talk about it in our salary cap sheet here. So yeah, I give him like a C on the year for the offseason. And again, it's just, I don't see where they got better. I think there were actually legitimate areas that they could have gotten better in. Look, if you just re-sign Jared Allen, bring in Evan Mobley, maybe there's a trade. Again, they did move off the Larry Nance contract. He's a good player. Like, obviously, maybe you could stick him and Love in a situation, but I don't know. The Markkanen acquisition was just really weird to me, and I think it stinks because I think Markkanen's a better player, and he's just not landing in the right situations for him. So let's really quickly talk about the cap situation here for Cleveland. So we got Kevin Love making $31 million this next upcoming season, and then the season after that, he's making $28.9. So a lot of money going to Kevin Love. Again, I quickly mentioned it that I think the Thunder are probably a candidate to where they could potentially trade for him, absorb his contract into the salary cap space that they have, and then move forward there and maybe get a draft pick out of it. But does Cleveland want to do that? Because Cleveland's not going to be good. Again, we're talking about them right now because I have them second worst in the Eastern Conference. So again, I don't know exactly what to expect there. Maybe they buy him out of his contract. I have no idea, but I think things are going to get ugly there in Cleveland. He doesn't want to be there. He's also just dealing with so many injuries lately. It's just hard to get excited. And I loved Kevin Love when he was like elite prime Kevin Love in Minnesota and the beginning of Cleveland. So unfortunate there. Jared Allen, we mentioned. Ricky Rubio's contract, again, he could potentially be bought out or traded again before the season's over. Markkanen, Cedi Osman has been so up and down in his career. Mobley, they just drafted. Garland, who my personal opinion is that he's going to go and just be a really good player this year. And I think you're going to see him average. I think he averaged, it was like 16 and maybe 16 and 6 this last year. I think this year he goes into the season and he potentially gets more. I think he can get up to 18, 19 points a game and maybe get 8 or maybe 9 assists for the team. Now, again, this is contingent on whether or not they play Rubio heavy minutes, because Rubio using the basketball and taking away from Garland and Sexton, it's not great. Windler, Sexton, we also mentioned. Sexton's the other interesting piece. Is there a way where they don't have to give up a future draft pick and they can send Love and Sexton to New York? They don't have to give up a draft pick. New York, is just fine with whatever. Obviously, we need salaries to match. And I'm kind of saying this in the mindset of like, what if they did it before the free agency opened, because the Knicks had cap space that they could have used at that point? Maybe, I don't know. But Sexton landing on being traded and going to a different team is also not out of the question here. If I was the team, and if I'm really not as high on Sexton as they are, then I would say Sexton and Love and just see what we can get. And heck, maybe we even bring on bad contracts to get that done. So that's pretty much it here that I want to discuss on the salary cap. Let's move over to the rotations here and touch on this really quick. Garland, Sexton, Isaac Okoro, who I'm not crazy about, Lauri Markkanen, Jared Allen. So this one's really interesting to me because I feel like this is a relatively okay starting lineup. The issue is just kind of who's coming off the bench. Like, they have nobody. They have they have Ricky Rubio. Like, I'm not going to get excited about Rubio. Denzel Valentine, Osman, Evan Mobley, first year guy, and then Kevin Love. So, like, it's almost like they have these 5, in my opinion, like 3 good players, and then it's just nothing else. Again, Okoro struggles offensively sometimes. Markkanen, we know about his defensive issues. I think Allen is pretty good as a center in today's game, plays at the dunker spot, and then Sexton scores, doesn't play a whole lot of defense, and Garland is just a young developing point guard of the future for the team. So I like those 3 guys, don't really like anything else. I think that's ultimately why they fall short of getting to what the projected win total here is at 27.5. I think it's lower than that. So I believe the Magic were at 22 or 22.5. I can see Cleveland at like 24 or 25 wins this season. I just don't see how they got better defensively. I don't see, like, they were a team, I believe they were really ranked high on steals. I might be totally wrong on that, but I think they were a team that actually could, maybe frustrate some teams to turn over the ball sometimes. But overall, as a defensive unit, they're not that great. And they didn't get better at that. Mobley, again, we saw with James Wiseman last year, a young center forward rim protector struggles in their first year getting heavy minutes. Like, James Wiseman showed us that last year, that, it takes a minute to get up to speed with the game, and because of that, I don't see Evan Mobley's impact being too great this year. I think, long term he's going to be fine, but this year we might see some ugly stuff from the Cavaliers. I think there's tension there with the Love situation. I do think there's also tension there with the opinion of what to do with Colin Sexton, and all that combined, you can't even tell me that the whole front office was together in unison about selecting. Or not selecting, about trading for Markkanen. Like, I don't think that's the case. Like, there's probably a lot of tension going on there. It's kind of a bad situation, and ultimately I think they're the second worst team in the NBA, but maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. We're taking a break on team previews here, and we'll be doing more on Monday. And then again, we're releasing 2 a day, doing 2 a days. Let's go. And we're going to do 2 a day up until we're pretty much done. And then at that point, we'll only have like a couple of days before the season begins. So yeah, get excited, get pumped. And again, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.